Hello, my friends. Today we are touring the Castello Normanno-Svevo of Bari, Italy. It is called Normanno-Svevo because it was a Norman fortification built in the 12th century and expanded by Emperor Frederick II in the 13th century. Frederick II was known as the Swabian, or the Svevo in Italian, because his family hailed from Swabia in the Holy Roman Empire. Now here we enter the castle through the entrance hall. And I just love those reused Roman columns. It's my absolute favorite part of Southern Italian high medieval architecture. The archwork is amazing. I just absolutely adore what medieval people did with stone. We are now going to head into the courtyard, and again, everything that will be explored here is from the Norman Swabian 12th and 13th century fortifications. The entire thing is surrounded by an early 16th century rampart, which was constructed by Isabella d'Aragon, daughter of Alfonso II, King of Naples, who ruled this area in a very complicated familial relationship with Ferdinand of Aragon, husband of Queen Isabella. Now there, of course, we can see the well, which is very important for any defensive fortification. And the grand staircase to the Piano Nobile, the noble first floor, where in addition to being defensive structures, were housed most of the living situations for the residents of the castle, at least the aristocratic residents. Also an important part of any castle, here we have the chapel. Now the artwork and the iconography is not original. However, the fact that it is in a Byzantine style is a very important thing to note. This part of Italy was conquered by the ancient Greeks and colonized by the ancient Greeks several thousand years ago. More recently, it then became a Byzantine possession. The Byzantine Empire ruled this area until the early 11th century when the Normans showed up. In addition to conquering England through William the Conqueror, the Normans also conquered much of southern Italy, including Sicily, although they didn't hold it particularly long, not like the ancestors of William the Conqueror have, for example. Now, because this castle was built by the Normans in an already very well-populated area, there were things that were here before, and they are currently still being excavated. So in addition to being a museum and a cultural center, the castle is also an archaeological site. And even as we go through the bones of the Norman structure, we can then descend to an earlier time period, the level of an earlier time period, and check out what was around here before the Normans turned up. And it turns out what was here before the Normans was a church, a Byzantine church. And what do you have with Byzantine churches, or most churches for that matter? A graveyard. So archaeologists have done the excavations beneath the castle in a way to reveal a little bit of that Byzantine church and a portion of that Byzantine graveyard. Just to give you an idea of how everything relates. Here is the original foundation wall of the Norman structure. And hard up against it is the pre-existing graveyard. Now the coffins and the bodies have been removed. However, you can still very clearly make out that this once was a resting place. Going to the other side of the walkway, here is a little bit of the church to which the graveyard was attached. You can see most clearly some of the paving stones. And this is where I tripped and almost dropped the phone. That would have been exciting. And again, a little bit more of the church and also a closer examination of the Norman fortifications. So coming back into the area, we are now back into the Norman castle, and we are exploring the ground floor. Now the ground floor here is filled with reproductions and casts of medieval statuary, and in one case, ancient statuary. This room houses some really cool stuff, but it is all reproduction works. That is a reproduction of an ancient Greek bronze head of a colossal statue of Hercules from the city of Barletta, as well as a few other replicas. And then on into the Hall of Statuary. Now you can again see the bones of the structure very clearly. They have done a really, really good job of maintaining the stucco and whitewash in a way that does still show the structure. And I just had so much fun wandering through these rooms. Again, these are all reproduction works, but they are all really phenomenal, very well done, and taken from direct casts of the originals. Here we re-emerge into the courtyard, where we're going to swing back around and head up those stairs. You can see a medieval lion at the top of the stairway. Medieval lion sculptures are not terribly lifelike, but I always find them very deeply charming. This one's taken some damage over the years. Now here we are among a phenomenal assortment of ancient Greek vases. Just stunning painted work. And this is a castle tour, so those images are all in a different folder. But continuing on, we are now in a room, in the following rooms, that house actual remnants of medieval sculpture. They are no longer plaster cast representations. These are archaeological finds that had been found on the site. Again, featuring an ancient Roman reused column and a window that gives you a sense of the thickness of the walls. Now, the sculptures that you'll see here range from the 11th to the 16th century in provenance, but most of them cluster toward the beginning of that date range. Some really magnificent examples of high medieval sculpture. Now we're coming up on some of my favorite bits. These are called crutch capitals because of the way that they framed a window. And they're just stunning. And they are 11th century originals. Just absolutely magnificent. And if you look at the window, you can see the way that they fit, where they go the center bar underneath them to an archway above. They were found as the archaeological excavations were going on, and the castle is extraordinarily proud of them, and they have several of the news clippings saved and preserved throughout the castle. Again, here we have some medieval column capitals, which I found fascinating. They were not reused ancient. They were actual medieval carvings. and a fireplace. And I am obsessed with fireplaces. I stick my head up whenever I can to see whether they've been closed off or not. Hi. And this particular one has been glassed in, but you can just make out the firebox within. And then right next to it is a stunning example of a castle window seat, where you have two seats across from each other in the window. And as a musician, I can just imagine strumming a lute in one, well, some other person with whom I may or may not be romantically involved is in the other one. And then continuing on, again, we can get a sense of the thickness of the walls. I'm not sure what this was, but it was closed off by a later renovation in the castle. You'll notice the total absence of docents and a number of empty chairs. It very much is a free range castle experience. And here is the magnificence of the Great Hall. Again, I'm not sure what this was or where it went, but it doesn't go there anymore. However, what's amazing are the things that do survive. And this may be my favorite part of the entire castle, are these two carvings. They're just so delightful and so cool. And another one of these glorious windows that I just adore. As we continue on, the rooms have had a little more renovation work, but are also filled with some amazing archaeological exhibits. You can see that the ways the arches along the walls have been shortened to put in a flattened ceiling instead of the archways. And another delightful window seat. Now, this room houses glassware that was found in the midden pits. But again, because this is a castle tour, those are in a different folder. Back into the courtyard, here's another glimpse of that lion with a scenic view of the corner tower. We're going to continue on down the stairs and through that archway in the distance. This will take us out of the Norman Keep and back out to the Norman Swabian ramparts. Again, everything that is on this tour is from the 12th and 13th century iterations of the castle. The 16th century wall is here, surrounding the earlier structure. Unlike most castle renovations, this one was never lowered. They never dropped the tower height because after the invention of cannons, high towers became more dangerous than helpful. But for whatever reason, these towers were allowed to stand, possibly because this is a seacoast castle and they were useful as lookouts for approaching ships. And again, we continue walking on the path between the 13th and 12th century structure on the right and the 16th century ramparts on the left. Coming around the corner, which is where we began our tour. Thank you so much for joining me. I had such a delightful time exploring the castle, and I am very grateful to be able to share it with all of you. Thank you so much for all your support.